Hey you awesome people, welcome to my channel. This is Sapta, and if you are here for the first time, this is the place where I help designers build and scale their career with tips, suggestions and tutorials. So if you're into it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Today in this episode, I'm going to teach you one of the very first things that you need to do even before you start animating your thing inside After Effects. That is, importing your assets or your design inside After Effects. So if you have been following my masterclass, I'm sure you're already exposed to one way of doing it, the technique which I have been showing in all the tutorials. If you haven't seen them, I will keep them linked here in the info button, the top right corner of the screen. I will teach you 3 techniques, and I'll also speak about their pros and the cons, and at the end I will also say which is my preference and the reason why I prefer that technique over the others. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. We are in After Effects, and today I will show you 3 different ways of importing your designs or assets into After Effects before you animate them. The first way is to import images. Whichever tool you use for designing, in this case I'm showing Figma, when you design your UI, you can always decide in what form you would want these assets to be in. For example, in this one I have divided that UI into these separate parts, things that I wish to animate differently. I group them up and I export them as images, and when I do, I save them in a particular location with names. Now naming them is very important, I'll tell you why in a bit. So all these assets are now ready to be imported inside After Effects. All that I need to do is go to After Effects, and in this project panel, while I'm here, double click on the project panel and navigate to the place where my image assets are saved. Select all of them and click open. Now this way we will have all the images or all the assets inside. We can use these images to reassemble the UI inside After Effects and then animate them in the way we want it. Now let us assume that we create an animation like this, and here are the assets that we had imported and which we have used in creating this animation. Now these assets that we have imported inside are not embedded in this file, but they're just linked. Which means if I go to my folder navigation, you will find all these images, and these images are linked. When something is linked, what After Effects essentially does is, it figures out the path, that is the location in which these files are stored, along with the names. And if you make any changes in this place, that is in the Finder, it is going to affect there. For example, if I go and change this home to the home or something, so the moment I do this, it changes the path in which this is located. So what After Effects will do is, it will throw an error. It says a file could not be found. And when you click OK, you will see After Effects has automatically substituted it with a glitch, the default placeholder which After Effects uses, which is nothing but home. The moment I go and change this back to home.png, then it will again start reflecting. Or if I want to use a different image in place of this, I can always go and right click on it and do a replace footage and find a file which I would instruct After Effects to use in place of this. For now, I will just go ahead and rename it back so that After Effects starts recognizing it once again. I'll remove this the from here and switch it back to home.png. And now when I come here, you might still see that placeholder. That's because it takes a little while for it to update automatically. If you want to see the changes immediately, just right click on this and click on reload footage. The moment you do, it finds the file which it was looking for, which is home.png. Previously it wasn't finding it because home.png wasn't there. I changed the name to something else. And now it is back to the way it is. Now this entire thing can also be used to our advantage. Now imagine after doing the entire animation, if I feel that certain thing needs to be changed in the design. For example, say, I want to make the color of this button into blue, and instead of 152 places, I want to write 220 places. So what do? I don't have to bring in a new asset and do the animation all over once again. All I will do is go back to my design tool, select the button, change the color of it to a shade of blue. Of course, I'll use the same for the stroke as well. And I will change it to whichever text I want, 220 for instance. And I will go ahead and export this entire asset once again. Yeah, I will go here and it says, do you want to replace it? Yes, I want to replace it. As long as the name is same, it's going to work. Now when I go back to After Effects, you see it's automatically got updated to the blue button with the updated text. Now if you go and see, all the animation is just intact, and since I have changed the asset, it seamlessly replaced it. Awesome, isn't it? But this technique has one small con as well. And the con is, since all of these are images, when you scale certain thing up, they would get pixelated. If I set the quality to full so that you see what is happening here, if I take this home for instance, and if I just scale it to a big size, if I make it really big, you would see things starts getting pixelated. That's because these are images after all. So what do? This is in fact a problem. One way to go about is, if we know that we are going to use certain scaling in our animation, it's always a good idea to export slightly bigger assets so that when you scale them up, it kind of makes up for it. Other than this, there's no other con in this tool. And since the output or the things that you're importing are images, you can use any tool, be it Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD, Photoshop, Illustrator, and this is also my preferred way of using assets inside After Effects. Now let's see the second technique. The second technique is to directly use elements that we have used in the design tool into After Effects directly without involving any kind of images or anything into the picture. And for doing this, for tools like Adobe XD, it is inherently possible because both the tools are from Adobe. And if you want to do the same using tools like Sketch and Figma, you might have to use some third-party plugins. Now it's very simple. I've created the same UI in Adobe XD here, and these are the different elements which I have used. All that I need to do is just select this artboard here, go to File, Export, After Effects, and make sure before you do this, make sure After Effects is open, a blank After Effects screen is open, and after that you go to Adobe XD and select your artboard. Selecting is very important again. Go to File, Export, and click on After Effects. And within a second, you will find your entire UI inside After Effects. You see, all these things, whatever you had inside your design tool in XD, are here as well. And the great thing about this is all this text and everything, they are live. So I can use the text tool inside After Effects and I can change those things out here. So I can make this 6-bedroom into a 5-bedroom, and I can call this a standard or anything. I can make all the changes inside After Effects right here because all of them get imported as elements, as real text elements and everything. Now the con with this technique, there are two big cons because of which this is still not my preferred technique. And the cons are, first of all, there are so many layers here. You see, I'm not animating all these layers. So every single element that you've used in design gets exported from XD and they get imported into After Effects. While I'm animating, I may move around only a few of these things. So just for animating few things, I don't need to see all these things out here. And at least till now, I haven't figured out a way in which I could control them. If you know anything, please let me know in the comment section so that I can perhaps make a video on that as well. And the second biggest con in this is I cannot make any changes to these things outside. Which means if I animate all these things and I want to make some changes, I'll have to do everything inside After Effects itself. If I want this image to change, I'll have to go inside and replace this image inside and do everything within After Effects, which is not that big a deal, but still I would prefer, at times I would want to make the design related change in the design tool. For example, if I were to make this text into blue, and if I make this text blue, and if I attempt to select it and again push it inside After Effects, that is File, Export, After Effects, you will see it will create one more composition with the blue text, that is this one. So it creates a copy of the same thing, so it doesn't update the existing one. So these two I feel are the biggest cons of this technique, which stops me from using this technique more often. The third way to import assets inside After Effects is to import the entire design file and not just elements. And it works, of course, only with Adobe tools, Photoshop and Illustrator to be precise. It doesn't work with XD. I will show you that in a bit. And to do that, all that we need to do is to create the UI or whatever your design is inside Illustrator or Photoshop or any other tool. So this is, the same UI that I have recreated inside Illustrator as well. Just go ahead and save it somewhere. I saved it in my desktop for now. And then go to After Effects. And then while you're in the project panel, double click, just like you would import an image, and navigate to the file. In my case, it is testui illustrator.ai. So you select this, and here's the thing that you need to do. So every single time when you are importing images, you wouldn't bother what all these things were about, but in this case, you will have to. So by default, it is set as import as footage. That's not what you want, because if you do it, it will import it like a flattened image, one single image without the layers retained. So what you need to do is click on this, click on Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. So when you click on this and click Open, you will see the entire Illustrator file got converted into one composition. So when you double click on that, you will see all your UI here. But you will see that it is still one single layer. So although we have instructed After Effects to look into every layer, but it has still picked up one layer. The reason is because the file was made in Illustrator like that. Let me go ahead and show you. I will delete this. And now we come back to Illustrator. So you will see when we design things in Illustrator, Illustrator has a concept of sub-layers as well. So here you see everything is inside one layer, but multiple sub-layers. So that's not how it works here. So if you want these things to appear separately, you would need them in separate layers and not just separate sub-layers. So let me quickly go ahead and do that for you. So if I want this heading to be in one, I'll just cut it, make a new layer and paste it here, and I will name this as header. Similarly, I will pick this up, cut it, create a new layer, paste it here, and I will call it the filter bar. Similarly for this one, I will cut it, make a new layer, paste it, and I will name it as listing 1. It totally depends on how you would want your animation to be, right? Whatever you want to isolate out and whatever you do not wish to isolate out. I would also want the back icon to be in a different layer. So I will paste it and I will give it a back icon. Now this is nothing but my background, which is this image that I had placed. So this one I will call it background. So that's the only thing remaining. Now that when we have different layers for the different components, all that I need to do is just save it, Command and S, I save it. Now I go back to After Effects, and now when I double click on it, I click on Test UI Illustrator, import as composition retain layers, and when I click on open, you see that composition has come. When I open it, you see all these layers are now separated out, just like you would want them to. So these are all separate. And now if you wish to make some changes, all that you need to do is to go and make changes in the Illustrator files. If you have animated everything and now you want to make some changes to it, for example, let's go to Illustrator and let's assume I want this titles to be blue right now. So all that I will do is just select them and I will hit Command S. And when I go back to Illustrator, it takes a while to refresh, but if you do not see the changes right away, all that you need to do is go inside this Test UI Illustrator layers. These are nothing but the assets. Just select any one of them, listing 1, and do reload footage. You will immediately see the changes appearing here. You see the blue has just appeared, the change that we have made in Illustrator here. Alright, let me show you one more interesting thing that you can do. Let's see how can we zoom inside. For example, let's assume that you wish to zoom this in. I have this header out here, and to do that I can hit S on my keyboard and then scale it to whichever size I want, right? Now you see things are getting pixelated. Now you might be wondering why is that happening, because Illustrator is a vector graphic tool, so everything that you put out here, of course except these images, everything else are vectors and they shouldn't get pixelated like this when you scale them. The reason it happens this way is because once the Illustrator file is imported here, all these layers are treated as images. They're treated as raster images, and that is why you see this pixelation out here. But there's a way to fix that as well, because inherently they are vectors. And to turn on the vector properties of them, you will have to turn on one small thing here. For example, in header, if I wish the vector properties to get retained, I will have to click on this checkbox here. If you want to see what this is, hover on the heading here. It says for composition layer, collapse transformation, that is, or for vector layers, continuously rasterize. And that's what is going to get activated. So what this will do is it will retain the vector properties and will continuously rasterize it to show you a preview. Or in simple words, it's going to retain the vector property. So if I go and turn this on, you see, it suddenly got better. And now, no matter how much you scale them, it is not going to pixelate because it's going to retain its vector properties. See, we are scaled at 1600%, but nothing is going to happen to it because my vectorization is turned on. If I turn it off, you see, this is how a pixel image would look like. But we have this. Awesome, isn't it? Now this is great. Now seeing all these things, you may feel that this process doesn't have any con at all. My organization is fine. I get to select only the layers I work with. I also get to scale them, retaining their vector properties. So then what is the problem with this technique? Well, the problem with this technique is if you are a product person like me, more often than not, you will be designing using a tool which is, say, Figma or Sketch or XD and not Illustrator. So to gain from this advantage which Illustrator provides, you may have to recreate the UI in Illustrator, which is double the work. Today I did it just for demonstration, but on a normal day, I wouldn't want to do twice the amount of work. So this, I feel, is the biggest con of this technique, that you might have to recreate the things twice. But if you are doing something in Illustrator, if you're animating a character or something like that, then you can directly use this technique and it's going to be very beneficial because you will have all these advantages at your disposal. By the way, animation of characters are going to come in this masterclass very soon, so wait for it. Let me also tell you one more cool thing that you can do using this technique. Now you have all your layers here that you would want to animate. But let us just assume that you want to do something special to this back icon. You want to animate this back in a certain way so that this back changes to cross and then cross changes back to back again or something like that. But right now, this is just like an image. There's nothing that you can do with this. So here's a way using which you can make this editable inside After Effects. And to do that, what you need to do is select the layer here, back icon. Because if you remember, these are all inherently vectors inside, but when we see them in After Effects, they behave like images. But you can always extract that exact properties from inside. And to do that, you click on back icon, right click, create shapes from vector layers. So if you click on this, you would see one new shape layer has formed, and the back icon layer, it automatically gets hidden. It's equivalent to not present here right now. And what it has done is it has converted this layer into real shapes and it has made a copy of this here. Now this is a shape which is editable inside After Effects. For example, you see, I put a width of 1.5 pixels. I can go and make it 3 pixels and you see it immediately changing here. I can go and change the color to something else. And I can do everything that I could otherwise be able to do if I create a shape inside After Effects that is using pen tool or something like that. It's exactly the same thing. You see, this shape layer 2 is what I just created with pen tool, and this back icons outlines is what we have created from something that we have designed inside After Effects. Of course, we could have designed this back inside After Effects as well, but as we all know, it's a little complicated to use pen tool and all inside After Effects, so it's always more comfortable when we design them in Illustrator and then we convert them in this way so that we can use it to our advantage. Now if you wish to use the same technique using Adobe XD files, you will see that that's not possible. So if you try to import a .xd file directly into After Effects, so I'm in project panel, I double click here, here's my XD file, you will see that this is grayed out, so it's disabled. Adobe doesn't let you import an XD file directly inside After Effects, but it lets you do for Illustrator and Photoshop files. I don't know why they have done it this way, so Adobe, if you're listening to it, what you've done with XD already is amazing, but if you could also bring support of this, it would be nothing like it. So these were the 3 different techniques of importing assets inside After Effects. Let me know in the comment section which one do you think works for you the best. For me, it's technique number 1, because I told you the reasons behind why I like using that. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. This is Sapta. See you guys in the next one.